Imagine a machine that plugs into your television and records programs from the aerial onto a 2.5-hour cassette. A machine that records one channel while you're watching another, and even switches itself on.
40% of 5- and 6-year-old children have seen a video nasty, showing scenes of sadistic sex and violence horrific enough to have been seized by the police.
It's supposed to be midnight, something evils are working in the dark.
There was no certification system for home entertainment. So all these videos are coming out uncertificated between 82 and 84.
You see a lot of blood. You see a lot of people getting their heads chopped off and slaughtered all over the place.
It turns into a huge moral panic.
Crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood.
Distributors of videotapes want to introduce classifications similar to those operating at the cinema.
They warn which films need parental guidance and which should be limited to the over-15s and the over-18s.
Suddenly in 84, it's legislation. For the first time in the history of the BBFC, it is a statutory body. It has a statutory duty to censor videos, to watch them all and to censor them. And this completely changes its role in society. It's no longer a voluntary industry body, a self-regulating body that the industry sees the value of. It's a wing of government.
Furman just locked everything down and said, I'll deal with it. And we sort of restored this sense of patrician authority, which is, it's okay, trust me, I'm dealing with it.
We've had to classify every video in the shops by tomorrow. So midnight tonight, the job has to be done.
So you had, on top of having to, of this tremendous job, you've also had Rambo 3 and The Last Temptation of Christ thrown in on top of it.
Just the month we didn't need it, yes.
How many more videos have you to do? Your deadline's tomorrow.
Well, I'm going back to the office after this programme tonight.
The BBFC was James Furman. I mean, he did a very interesting job of essentially becoming the judge and jury and having the final word. I mean, even getting an interview with him, it was like an audience with the Pope. You know, it's like, I've actually got to interview James Furman.
Arising out of all this storm of controversy in 84, the name of the organisation changes from censorship to classification, which was Furman's idea. And it's very clever. I mean, you don't look heavy-handed. You're not a censor. You're a classifier. It's an objective thing. You're like a library person who does library cards and does all the index numbers. You know, you classify. Classification is very different to censorship, and so it has remained.
Good evening. The headlines at 6 o'clock. An armed man has opened fire with an automatic weapon in a Berkshire town. At least 9 people are dead. 14 are injured.
From my impression, there were people saying he was playing Rambo.
Tonight, the town of Hungerford has been sealed off. The gunman is still at large and still armed.
The day after Hungerford, we had a board meeting, these monthly board meetings that we would have. And Jim came into the meeting in a state of mind that I would only describe as hysterical, that is, completely beside himself. And the hysterical response was to say, as a result of this, we must absolutely look at how guns are portrayed in films, and we must absolutely hack it back because this is what's happened. Because there was a completely ill-advised linking in the media's mind between what Michael Ryan did in Hungerford and the Rambo film.
First and second Rambo, certificate 15, Rambo 3, certificate 18. Hungerford had happened in between.
Examiner report. This silly, rather enjoyable movie is likely to be a political red-hot potato, what with all the hoo-ha about Rambo 2 and then Hungerford.
Two-thirds of the film, that is about an hour and a quarter, is non-stop shooting, explosions, bodies falling, impact shots. It's not so much what is shown, but how much and how relentlessly.
The issue was a category issue, that is, whether it should be 15 or 18 and whether it should be cut for either or both categories.
Notes on viewing. Another all-action attempt to further the Rambo cult and swell Stallone's bank balance.
given that we've passed the second film and the cult is here, I reluctantly go for a 15.
Expertly made, pity about the script and the wooden actor in the lead. My inclination in the current climate would be to pass 18.
My instinct would be to pass at 15. Give Rambo a break.
I think there was a feeling at the BBFC that Rambo 3 was probably a 15 under normal conditions. But at the time, if they gave it a 15, they would just have such a howling storm of protest that it wouldn't be worth their while.
Public disquiet is at its height. It is naive to believe that we can always act without regard to political realities. Indeed, I would go further and argue that it's irresponsible. Pass 18.
Well, the final decision was that it was made an 18, but a cut version.
What we all want is a quiet life.
It's fascinating what they thought. I mean, it's fairly unpleasant throughout, actually, but what they thought was particularly unpleasant. One is a little boy fingering a knife delightedly. In other words, the emulation effect. Somebody, I want to be like Rambo. That upset them.
What is this?
Nice.
Can you see this? Very good. Can I have it?
Remove sight of Rambo's knife being twirled by young boy after he takes it from holster.
James developed the board weapons policy to such an extent that any